What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sportstopia, Fantasy Fire and Ice, MLB edition. I'm your host, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, along with my man, George Bissell. We got a main slate of MLB baseball to get into tonight, so I want to thank you for rocking and rolling with us. Try to help you make a couple dollars coming off a big Sunday yesterday. Got that Contrarian Edge Optimizer. It's going to be a QR code to pop up on the screen. You can put your phone on there. Hopefully you get to it faster than I get to it, because I struggle with them QR codes, you know what I'm saying? But hopefully you get to it faster than I do. That right there, you give you a 7-day free trial. You could test drive it. It's not a free trial, but a 7-day test drive for $1 single. Hop on there, get that optimizer. It'll help make your life better in your DFS games. And don't forget the most important thing, Sportstopia.io is now live. The website is now live. Head on over there and check out all the great work that we are doing over there. George, what's going on, my man? It's a good Monday to talk baseball.
What's going on, Corey? It's great to be here. Excited to be on the show. And we've got a big slate to talk about. 15 games, a lot busier than usual on a Monday. So yeah. we got the optimizer fired up. We're ready to go. Let's do this.
So I would think like Monday was like a getaway day in baseball. You know, you play the Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. You travel Monday. Apparently, it's a lot of game fours.
Yeah, usually, Sunday's that nice getaway, nice quick 2 hours. The pitch clock's moving, you're going, you're ready to get out of there. So, yeah, there's a lot of quick turnarounds here. A lot of interesting things on the pitching sides. Looks like there's going to be a little more of a scramble for teams trying to piece things together. A lot of spot starters in there. So there are a few aces going. We're going to talk about them in a second here, but a lot of good foundational guys to build around when you're putting together lineups tonight.
No doubt. I would be remiss if I did not start by giving condolences and thoughts and prayers to the families of the victims of September 11th. You know what I'm saying? It's been in our past now, but that day, memory of those people, they still lives on. And baseball was a big part of coming back. You know what I mean? Especially when you look at what was going on in New York City.
Yeah, and one of the most iconic moments was President Bush going out there and throwing the first pitch at Yankee Stadium. And I think that's a moment that's gonna, stick with people for a long time. And obviously, our thoughts are with everybody, and we remember those.
No doubt,
lost their lives on September 11th. Absolutely.
So you mentioned the George Bush first pitch at Yankee Stadium. So I grew up in the shadows of Yankee Stadium. So that particular night, it was still very, living in New York at that time, it was very difficult to deal with. Like, you didn't know what was going on. And I remember standing outside of my building in Harlem, and the F-16, I saw it coming across the Hudson River. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was like amazing, right? And then it flew past my block, and every car alarm on the block went off. Then it darted past Yankee Stadium. So that was a great moment right there as the city tried to get back. Now, George, every Major League Baseball team has a fantasy football draft. You know what I'm saying? Major League Baseball players are big fantasy football players, just like the rest of us. So, they got to get ready for today and stop worrying about their rosters. As a matter of fact, didn't somebody get slapped on the I'm about to say the 76ers? Didn't one of the Phillies get slapped behind a fantasy dispute?
Oh, yes, that was the infamous Jock Peterson, Tommy Pham dispute, where they were both on the same team back on, a couple years ago. And apparently Peterson, was doing some stuff that Tommy Pham didn't like on the waiver wire, stashing some players on IR, something. So Tommy Pham basically went up to him, slapped him, got suspended for it. They were on other teams at that point. So, yeah, that was one of the funnier incidents that happened in baseball in the last few years. Yeah, that's another memorable one.
No doubt. That was pretty. Listen, it can get pretty hostile in these fantasy leagues. That's why we switched to DFS. You know what I'm saying? Let's get ready to go ahead and get started. We're going to go this main slate, beginning with 7 p.m. Eastern time I'm about to say tip-offs, first pitches. Rangers and Blue Jays. Blue Jays a $1.45 favorite, minus 145 on the money line for the Blue Jays. The total is 9. The Blue Jays are 4-2 on the money line in the last 6 starts by Bassett.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this one is Dane Dunning's taking the ball for the Rangers, and he gave up 9 runs in his last start against the Astros.
Jesus.
You could say that's arguably the best lineup in baseball right now, along with the Atlanta Braves. So, yeah, I think he'll pitch a little bit better, but this is a Toronto lineup where They've got everybody back healthy. You have Vlad Jr. hasn't had the type of season we all expected coming into the year, but he's obviously a force. And then you have Bo Bichette now back healthy. They're trying to manage a little bit of an injury issue with him coming off the knee issue. George Springer's really picked things up of late. Davis Schneider, one of their rookies, has really stepped up and done a really nice job for them. So I actually really like the Blue Jays lineup in this one. This is going to be one of my stacks for the day, I think. It's not the best one on the slate, but okay. I think if you're looking for offensive firepower, I think this is the type of matchup where you could see a lot of runs go up on the board because the Rangers are at the point with their pitching staff where they're really struggling and they're just trying to piece innings together. During Sunday's game, they had John Gray only go 2 innings. Then Andrew Heaney had to come out of the bullpen against the A's. And that was a game in which I think there were almost 15 runs scored in that game. The Rangers ended up winning it, but it was a slugfest there for a while. So I actually think there's going to be a lot of runs scored in this game. I take the over on runs scored. I think you said it was, 9.5?
9 is the number. It might go up to 9.5. Like the way you talk about this pitcher, it could go up to 9.5. To give up that many runs, that's interesting. So we've already identified a stack already with with the Blue Jays. Okay. Possible stack team right there. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just really like the matchup, and with it being in Toronto, you have a Rangers staff where they're really starting to dig deep into that bullpen. Their starting rotation has really struggled to go deep into games, and if Dane Dunning gets chased early, he doesn't pitch well. You can see a lot of runs going up on the board against the middle relievers there in that series opener.
That bullpen is something to not get when you don't want to get involved with. All right, let's come down to Queens. The Diamondbacks and the Mets. The Mets are $1.40 favorite. The total is 9. If the Mets are $1.40 favorite, the Diamondbacks must stink. Zach Davies and Jose Quintana. The Mets actually 3-0 versus the D-backs on the season.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing here is that Jose Quintana has actually pitched really well this season since coming back in late July. He's completed 6 innings, gotten at least 18 outs in 7 of his 9 starts. So the Diamondbacks offense is one where they're capable of catching fire. I think we saw a lot of high-scoring games against the Rockies last week, but they have a couple really impactful injuries in this one. Ketel Marte is dealing with a knee issue. He didn't play over the weekend, so that's one to watch. And then Jordan Lawler, they're really talented young prospect who came up last week, one of the top prospects in baseball. He's also dealing with an injury at the moment. He hurt his hand after being hit by a pitch over the weekend. So if those guys don't play, I think it puts a lot of pressure on Corbin Carroll and facing a left-hander in Jose Quintana. I don't think the Diamondbacks are really going to score in this game. So I like Quintana. He's one of those like sleeper under the radar guys. If you're trying to go a little bit cheaper on the pitching slide, if you're building a lineup that way today, I think Quintana is going to pitch well. I think this is a game where the Diamondbacks could struggle to score runs.
Yeah, no, that won't be good right there. Look at the Mets trying to get a win. They are 3-0 versus the Diamondbacks this season, so maybe they have their number. Oh God, look at this—the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Hey, yeah, we'll talk about that game. That series was looking a lot more exciting before some really devastating injury news for the Yankees over the weekend.
Well, the Red Sox are a 125 favorite. The total is 10. Clark Smith versus Cutter Crawford. Red Sox 8-1 versus the Yankees this season. Sell the team. Sell the team. Sell the team, Hal.
I'll tell you what, things were really looking up for the Yankees until we got the news that they're really exciting young prospect, Jason Dominguez, who he's kind of been the talk of baseball, but he had a weird injury where he hurt his right elbow on a throw from center field last week. Waited a couple of days. The pain continued to get worse. He underwent some testing over the weekend that revealed a torn UCL in his right elbow. God. Yeah, so he's going to miss the remainder of this season. He's also probably going to be sidelined until the All-Star break next year. Now, that's going to be Tommy John surgery on the elbow. And we know for pitchers, it's about a 12-month recovery. It's a lot shorter for hitters. We saw Shohei Ohtani undergo Tommy John surgery, and he was able to come back in DH in about 6 to 8 months. So it's a lot shorter of a timetable for hitters. I think Dominguez will be back at some point in the middle of next year, but he was really hitting, tearing the cover off the ball and was making a huge impact for the Yankees. So that really puts a damper on this series, which I think would have been one of the more exciting ones this week when you have both of those teams trying to come out of nowhere and make the playoffs. So I think the Yankees are trending in the right direction, but the Dominguez news, it's a pretty devastating blow when you look at a guy who probably is going to be one of the guys they built around going forward, now being out for probably at least half of next season.
That's not good. I think it's like, it almost seems like the torn UCL is like a part of being a baseball player. like, okay, well, what year am I going to miss for tearing my UCL? You know what I'm saying? So I guess you want to do it earlier in your career as opposed to later in your career, because later in your career, it could take you out the game. At least early in your career, you can recover from it and then, not have to worry about it as much moving forward.
Yeah, it used to be a lot more of a risky prognosis long term for pitchers coming off Tommy John. They've really done a lot of work making that surgery, the recovery, and then being back to full performance. They've done a really nice job. The science has improved a long way over the years. We've seen a lot of guys undergo it and come back and be successful. I just mentioned Shohei Ohtani. He's come back and pitched like an ace. Shane McClanahan underwent the surgery earlier this year. So there's a lot of high-profile guys. We just saw Walker Buehler. He was trying to come back before the end of the season for the Dodgers, but it sounds like they're going to put him on ice until next spring. So the recovery timetable is a lot different for different guys. But, yeah, it's kind of become a staple of starting pitching.
One of my good friends in the industry, his son was drafted by the Braves and immediately tore his UCL. You know what I'm saying? So, and they dealing with that now. What does he feel good about it? He feel like, he's going to be better, and it's a part of the process. Kansas City Royals, Chicago White Sox, Brady Singer versus Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is giving up the long ball, 4 home runs in his last 2 starts. I thought Dylan Cease was supposed to be like a Cy Young guy.
Yeah, we all thought that.
It wasn't just me.
No, you're not wrong. He's always had the stuff. He's had the big curveball. He was a spin rate guy. Guy really lit up the advanced analytics. As a guy who, I think he finished top 3 in Cy Young voting last year. So we've, the issue with the home runs, it's bizarre. I think the White Sox are just a team that's kind of spiraled here. So I never like to look at teams like that as options this late in the season. There's a concern here with the weather. There are showers in the forecast throughout the night. This game's in Chicago, so the issue with that obviously is if Cease takes the ball for an inning or 2 and then they go into an extended rain delay.
That'd be terrible. They're not gonna send them back out there.
Right. There's a chance his night is over early. So you may only get a couple innings out of that. Best case scenario will be a late start, then play, or maybe, he doesn't get disrupted. But I think there are too many concerns with the weather here to actually trust him in this one. There's a couple pitchers I like a little bit more that I would lean on instead. When you look at this slate, sort of like a Brandon Woodruff or a Tyler Glass now, I think those are going to be your building blocks today.
We'll definitely get to those guys in a few. Let me ask you this. Is there a contrarian aspect to taking a player or players in the game that could be rained out?
Absolutely. There's always the risk with some of these games where they delay it and then guy pitches and is fine. We've seen that a couple times, but you get into situations where things can get weird. There was one with Clayton Kershaw a couple weeks ago where he threw like 2 innings in Cleveland, and then they went into this like 2-hour rain delay, and then it was over. So he didn't pitch for like a week after that. So, you can't. I just think it's tough to rely on guys when there's a risk of inclement weather, especially when there are other more reliable building blocks. I just wouldn't want to take that chance.
Yeah, especially with like a dude that's a veteran and stuff like that. They're probably going to be a little bit more cautious. Go ahead.
And like you said, for the White Sox, they're not playing for anything. So why would you risk anything with a guy who's the building block of your rotation going forward?
Miami Marlins, Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers a -160 favorite. Total on this one 7.5. Jesus Luzardo versus Brandon Woodruff. Last time we saw Brandon Woodruff, he was 2-hitting the Pittsburgh Pirates.
That's right. Brandon Woodruff's probably the guy I would build my lineups around today. Him and Tyler Glass, now who I mentioned a couple minutes ago. Those are the 2 big ones for me. There's a really interesting prop that I wrote about for Sportstopia. You can check that out on the website, sportstopia.io. It's our daily prize picks article, and I actually wrote about Woodruff for that. And the prop is 1.5 walks. I'm taking the under on that because the Marlins are one of the teams in baseball that don't draw a ton of free passes. They're 29th in walks since the All-Star break. Woodruff has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 5 of his last 6 starts. He's only given up 9 walks in 35 2/3 innings since coming back from the injured list back on August 6th. So it's a really good combination of a guy who's in a groove, pitching really well against a lineup that I think could struggle and doesn't have the plate discipline to really make him work. So I really like Brandon Woodruff in this one. I take the under on the runs in this game. I don't think Miami's going to score tonight. I really like Brandon Woodruff in this start. There's a lot of combination of factors here that point to him having a good outing.
I had a good day on underdog yesterday. So can I get this, Brandon? Can I get this on underdog that under 1.5 walks?
Yeah, so that's the prop. It's on underdog, 1.5 walks. There's a bunch of Brandon Woodruff props, but that's the one I feel like is the most likely to be successful tonight because of Miami's lack of patience at the plate. I mean, they're one of the more aggressive lineups in baseball. Like guys like Luis Ariz, they're contact hitters. They're going to be aggressive. They're not going to get deep into counts. They got a lot of free swingers as well. So I really like Brandon Woodruff. You can find that prop on underdog.
All right, there you go. I'm good because I did the draft, right, and I had like Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, and I just missed Travis Etienne, but I had Aaron Jones, and then I took DJ Chalk, and he had one catch. It was whatever. You be at the top, and then all of a sudden you win $20. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought I was going to get ready to clean up real good for a weekend. You know what I mean? But that was not the case. But it can happen tonight. Tampa Bay Rays and Minnesota Twins. Twins a minus 125 favorite. Is that correct? The Twins are the favorite, a minus 125 favorite. The total is 8. Tyler Glasnow versus Sonny Gray. Glasnow so far this season has a career high in strikeouts.
Yeah, Glassow's been phenomenal. He's coming off a 14 strikeout outing, matched his career high against the Red Sox last Wednesday. Yeah, he's been phenomenal, and he's the guy I probably would build my lineup around. If you look on DraftKings lineups tonight, he's 10,800. So he's the highest priced starting pitcher, but I think that's probably a good value for him because of how well he's done at missing bats of late. He's not going to repeat the 14 strikeouts. He's only had 8 or more strikeouts in 8 of his 17 starts this season. He's only done it once in his last 5 starts, but the Twins lead the majors in strikeouts. They struck out 550 times in 52 games since the All-Star break. I mean, that's a lot. And I know Joey Gallo isn't going to play because he's hurt, but he was a big part of that, as you probably know.
By himself. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember.
Even without Joey Gallo whiffing like a windmill, this is, I think, a matchup that's favorable for Glasnow, where there's another prop on underdog, which is over 8 strikeouts. 8 strikeouts is the number. I'm taking the over on that. I think because of the Twins' propensity to swing and miss and Glasnow's recent success, I think he gets that number tonight. I think he's probably the guy I'd be building around tonight if I were putting together a lineup. All
right, Glasnow higher than 8 strikeouts. Let's go down to Houston. The Astros a $3 favorite. That's a big one. The Astros a $3 favorite. The total on this game is 8.5. Mason Miller versus Framber Valdez. Those are the two dudes on the bump tonight. How are we looking at this one right here?
So I think this is the most interesting matchup of the day. I know that must surprise people because
I'm definitely going with the Athletics. I can't pass up that big underdog right like that. Because in baseball, that's where that big underdog is most likely to hit.
And I'll tell you what, if there were ever a situation where a pitcher was going to go out and perform well, I think it's tonight for the A's with Mason Miller. He's one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, routinely touches triple digits. He's one of the most electric young arms in baseball. Nice. I think he's going to be a really popular sleeper candidate in drafts next spring. He came back last week. He missed a couple months due to a right elbow issue. Fortunately, was able to avoid surgery, which is the big thing there. So he came back last week and threw in relief against the Blue Jays, had 2 perfect frames, 3 strikeouts. I think there's some workload limitations here. There's a risk that he doesn't go deep into this game. So if you're building a lineup, he's one of the cheaper starting pitching options out there. So because of those limitations and the A's not playing for anything, I think there's a chance he doesn't go deep into the game. But when he's out there, I think he could dominate for a couple innings against one of the better lineups in baseball in the Astros. So this feels to me like a statement start for him. Like if you're going to show people you're the real deal, you're one of the best.
Do it against the Astros.
Exactly. So I think he wants to go out there and make a statement tonight. And the A's bullpen is really better than you think. So like you said, if they get a lead early, I think they can hang on and win that game outright. That's a really good call. I like that pick.
Yeah, no doubt. If it's out there, you got to do it, especially in baseball. That's where you can see it at. Chicago Cubs, Colorado Rockies. This is where we get to this is one of the things that absolutely frustrate me the most about DFS baseball is chasing these Colorado Rocky games. You know what I'm saying? It's because of why I got this gray hair on my face. Jordan Wicks, who is 3-0 in his last 3, versus Kyle Freeland. The total in this game, the Cubs are a 178 favorite. The total is 11.5.
Yeah, Jordan Wicks has pitched really well. I think he's breaking some franchise records for the Cubs with how well he's performed. You obviously don't like the spot here. The breaking stuff just doesn't translate well to Coors Field. So I would stay away from Wicks. I think Kyle Freeland on the other side, he'd be a stack candidate for me with the Cubs lineup if there weren't so many left-handed bats in Chicago's lineup. So that's the risk here, is that there just aren't too many options. When you look at the Cubs, I think guys like Dansby Swanson, who had a nice game, he homered on Sunday, he could be an option here. Seiya Suzuki has always seemed to come through in these types of spots against, soft tossing lefties. Jamer Candelario is another guy he's reached 20 homers for the first time in his career this season. He's a potential option as well. And Christopher Morel's, hot and cold, extremely streaky. But if there were ever a guy who could heat up in Coors Field, he feels like the type of guy who could do that. So those are some options there for fantasy managers tonight with the Cubs lineup that I think could work out.
All right, that's interesting right there. Get ready to run that optimizer in a little bit. If you want to go ahead and get a jump on that, you can hit that QR code, sign up for a 7-day test drive, only cost you $1. And obviously, Sportstopia.io live right now. Be over there. Be one of the first people to go over there and get involved with the newest, coolest place in the fantasy sports industry. All right, Angels and Mariners out there in the Pacific Northwest. Mariners a $2.35 favorite. Total is 7.5. Reed Dittmers versus Logan Gilbert. Logan Gilbert, 7 home runs in his last 7 starts.
Yeah, Gilbert's hit a little bit of a rough patch here, but I'm not as worried about him. I think Reed Detmers is one of the more mercurial guys where the performance just varies based on, start to start. I think Seattle's got the type of lineup that can really give him some problems. When you look at the top of the lineup, you have, JP Crawford, who's having one of the better seasons of his career. Julio Rodriguez is like a dark horse MVP candidate in the American League. He's been absolutely incredible. And then the middle of their lineup is all right-handed hitters. You got guys like Cal Raleigh, who's phenomenal, Teoscar Hernandez, Eugenio Suarez. Ty France hasn't had a great year, but he's another guy who's right-handed. So this is the type of lineup I think Detmers could struggle against. So I think there's going to be quite a lot of runs scored in this game. And the Angels bullpen's just kind of been a disaster of late. So I like the Mariners in this one. I think there's a good chance they do some damage against Reed Detmers.
All right. Guardians and the Giants. Getting to that late part of the slate now out there on the West Coast. Guardians and Giants. Giants $1.45 favorite. Total 7.5. Gavin Williams versus Alex Cobb. What I've noticed about Williams, looking at some of his numbers, he has pitched pretty good on the road this year.
Yeah, Gavin Williams is one of those talented guys. The Cleveland Pitching Factory's produced them, and they got a lot of guys who've had success. They're in a weird position because it looks like Shane Bieber is going to come back at some point, and if they make the playoffs, there's a question about how they construct the rotation. But like you said, Williams has pitched well enough that I think he's going to be in the conversation to make postseason starts. You wonder what it looked like if they didn't trade Aaron Savali to the Rays. He'd been having one of the best stretches of his career before he was traded. So, yeah, I think Cleveland's got I like their odds tonight here in this spot because Alex Cobb's dealing with a hip injury. He had to actually receive a cortisone injection last week. Had his last start pushed back. Went only 3 innings against the Padres last Sunday in his previous start. Remember, he had that brilliant outing, the near no-hitter that got broken up with 2 outs in the 9th earlier this month. But basically, he threw about 130 pitches in that start, and that has an impact. That's why you don't see guys doing that anymore. And especially at his age, I think he's 35. It's just tough to ask him to bounce back from that. So he's gotten a little bit of rest here, but I think dealing with the injury, he's not going to go deep into the start. So I actually think this is a good spot for Cleveland on Monday night.
All right, Cleveland on Monday night. The final game of the slate, get ready to close it down. Padres and Dodgers. Dodgers $1.70 favorite at home. Total is 9.5 in this one. Pedro Avila and Gavin Stone.
Yeah, so yesterday was a real disaster for the San Diego Padres when you look at what they had to do from a pitching standpoint because their starter against the Astros, Matt Waldron, he got through 5 innings, but then they ended up having to use Rich Hill for 3 innings in relief. So he had been the guy who had been piggybacking with Pedro Avila.
Yeah.
So this is one of those situations where if the Dodgers chase Avila early, I don't know who's coming out of the bullpen for San Diego. Like, there could be a crooked number up on the board. And the Dodgers have kind of owned the Padres this season. As star-studded as their lineup is, they really haven't hit well. And you have Manny Machado dealing with a tennis elbow. He hasn't gotten into the pickleball craze. He just has an elbow issue. They're pretty certain it could change, but they're pretty sure he's going to have off-season surgery. Fernando Tatis is a little bit banged up right now. So, yeah, there's some question marks there. And the Dodgers are actually throwing a really interesting arm in Gavin Stone, who has had some pretty terrible numbers if you go look at his baseball reference page in the majors this season. But he's pitched really well at AAA of late, and he recently added a sinker and is throwing more of a cutter now as opposed to a slider. So when you look at that sinker changeup combo for him, that works a lot better against left-hand hitters than his previous four-seam combo was. So I think he's got a chance to have some success here against the Padres, and this is a good spot for him. He's one of the more low-priced starting pitching options here. So if you weren't going to go Mason Miller, I think Gavin Stone, he's only about 6,000 on DraftKings for lineups tonight.
Yeah.
The optimizer really likes him too. So that's another reason I think he could be a really interesting option here. The optimizer has Miller and Stone about the same, but you can get Stone a lot cheaper. So that would be a guy I would lean on tonight. I think Gavin Stone surprisingly pitches well tonight.
All right, interesting stuff right there. Let me read you the blend. Now, one thing about this optimizer right here, what we do is you get a chance to hit that QR code, you get that 7-day test drive for $1. But what we do is we have partners and we take the data from our partners and we blend them together. Here goes a lineup: Tyler Glasnow, Dylan Cease, Yan Gomes, Patrick Wisdom, Mookie Betts, Lindor, Nick Madrigal, Suzuki, thank you, Suzuki, Oscar Colas, and Will Brennan.
I like it. The only concern I have is Mookie Betts with the foot injury. He hurt his foot, fouled ball off of it. There's a chance he doesn't play if they're trying to get him some extra rest. So maybe I would sub in like a Julio Rodriguez if you want to stack against Reed Detmers, the lefty there. That might be the only substitution I make. But like you said, stacking the Cubs there at Coors Field, that's a good option.
There you go right there. So that is Fantasy Fire and Ice MLB, brought to you by Sportstopia. Do not forget, the most important thing you can do is go to sportstopia.io. That site is live right now. Get over there, start checking out the cool features. I saw where the founder, Daryl, my man Daryl, he threw up got the live odds going across the top of the page and all of that good stuff. So going over there, sportstopia.io, that QR code for that optimizer is a good way to look at it too. My man Greg Bissell is Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. Best wishes tonight. Good luck from Sportstopia. Go make sure you check out that website.